Oh my!
Dude, that was great. That was a great masterclass right there.
Dropping some grenades. Dropping some grenades. No, it's a good performance.
This is
The
Bhangra Podcast.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of the Panga Podcast, and this is part 2 of our Best Performances of the Decade series. In this episode, we're going to be going through our rationale for the teams we picked for the 2015 through 2020 seasons. Just a reminder, there is still time for y'all to make a prediction bracket to enter to win the giant cash prize at the end of this entire thing. Details for all the bracket stuff will be in our show notes, and you can check them out on our Instagram at the Bhangra Pod. Also, apologies in advance to any of the weird audio stuff. We lost Rom's audio for a bit, so there might be some weird glitchiness here and there with it. Be sure to check out our Instagram for details on how to make a bracket and how to vote for your favorite performance.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. We are on episode 2 of Panga, Best Performances of the Decade. Super exciting. So, Nana, why don't you tell us the rules?
All right, so for those of you who are maybe joining us after not having heard the previous episode, first things first, I would definitely recommend you go back and do that, where you can hear our picks for the seasons from 2010 to 15. Before we get into picking our sets from 15 to 20, I'm going to go over the rules for how we are picking sets here. So first things first, we're only picking music sets. There are some really great live sets from the last 10 years, but those are not going to make it into this particular bracket. The season, as we're defining it, runs from August of one year through July of the following. So by counting this way, 2010 to 11 is our first year, and 2019 to 20 is the last year we'll be covering. We also, in the spirit of fairness and to keep things interesting across different teams and academies and different years, we're putting a maximum of 2 sets per team in the final bracket. Also be aware teams are only being compared to other sets in that given season. So even if there's another set in a different season that's better or worse than the one that we're talking about, we're only comparing against whatever is in the season. So first season that we're going to cover in today's episode is 2015 to 16. Sid, you want to break down what we've got going on this year?
Hey, everybody. So in 2015 to 2016, we have a lot of teams. This is the most amount of teams that we put out. And again, to kind of circle back on how we came up with the teams, all of us put in 2 teams. And so that's why when you have all of us selecting 2 different teams, we get multitude of answers. So let's go through them first. Give a shout out to Base at Bruin 2016. Wonderful performance. The guys from Australia came and made their mark on the world. That video has so many views because it's the first time an Australian team came and really had an epic performance. Next, we have FCB at Mela 2016. Shout out to us, the only team to beat the future winner of this year. Then we have DRP at Bruin, an epic set. We knew right when they were done performing that DRP was going to win. We knew whenever they brought out the ribbons that it was probably over, and then finally when they were finally done, it was actually over. Next we have FCB at Bruin, where we went 20. I'm not going to talk about myself there, but we did a nice job. If the lights didn't go out, maybe we would. Maybe if the lights didn't go out a couple times,
Did good, right?
we would have gave DRP a run for their money. Next, we have NJ Warriors at Berg 2015. Those guys did an excellent job. I think the big thing about that performance is that it did I think the circuit was still waiting and seeing what NJ was going to continue doing if they were going to go back in a more creative direction, but they more or less solidified their focus, what we're going to do attitude with that performance, with that routine. Next, we have Unkijuan at TBC, which we will get into. We will get into that after we talk about our winner, which is CMU at Blowout 2016.
Yeah, so CMU at Blowout, I can tell you, as someone who was like a collegiate dancer when this set came out, I was blown away, as I think was most of the circuit when that video was released. I just don't think that anyone had seen a set, particularly from a collegiate team, that just made so much sense when they were watching it. I think right from the intro, it was really creative to not just do a mela, but to I think when there's a mela, there's a temptation to, have fun and then jump right into something super hard hitting. And CMU managed to hold the audience's attention all the way through a Jummer as their first segment. So lots of creative decisions right from the outset. And the Chaya Chaya hit in the middle was like a huge crowd pleaser. There was a lot of things that they did in an unexpected way throughout the set, and then put a really nice bow on it at the end with bringing it full circle back with the same mela, which I don't think people saw coming. So I should say that CMU is known as a very successful collegiate team and had been up till that point. I think 2016 felt like the culmination of years of CMU just getting better and better each year and trying newer and newer and things, pushing not just the collegiate circuit, but the circuit at large.
So a nice, fun story about CMU at Blowout is so I had the honor of judging that comp with Ankush, with Chirag, and Ashita. And that year, Blowout had a heavy emphasis on set creation. And when we were done watching the entire show, not even the entire show, because CMU, I believe, went third, and then GMU went fourth, and then we had intermission. At intermission, believe it or not, GMU was winning in points. Was it in points or maybe just in our heads? I can't remember now because we didn't. We
In
didn't.
your
We
heads,
didn't.
bro,
We
you
didn't, we
just
didn't
said-
tally the points at that point. I take that back. In our heads, GMU was winning because of that set creation aspect, and the reason that was because even though CMU set creation was excellent, the one segment where they just got on the little platform and played tabla, and then the dancers were doing jal, they just was playing what are called dirkits, and then the dancers were doing jal. That doesn't match at all. Like you would never see a dole player playing a dirkit and then the team as dancers doing jal. And so because of that segment as a whole, it absolutely brought them down. Granted, when they put the towers up, it kind of just brought everybody out of this like WTF is going on here from an audio-visual perspective into wow. But that in itself brought them down enough that we were talking about GMU beating them. And then at the end of it, when the points finally got tallied at the end of the day, CMU was still winning because of the dance elements brought them up so much because GMU's dance elements were not there at all. And we were getting real nitpicky trying to decide which team was going to win. Ultimately, CMU won out. But a lot of people just don't know that GMU gave them a very strong run for their money solely because CMU probably did something they shouldn't have done with the audio and the visual and them playing their kits instead of just a simple Jala style beat with a tabla.
No, also that's like really interesting because I'm like stealing your point, but nobody thinks like that anymore. Like nobody looks at that GMU performance really nowadays and says, yeah, that definitely should have beat CMU. And like almost universally, CMU's 2016 performance is beloved as one of those performances that was like, damn, holy shit, that was amazing. Oh my god.
But let me tell you why. And it's because
Please tell me, sir.
as judges we have a specific frame of mind of what we're looking for. What does the rubric tell us to look for? What's weighted heavily on that rubric? Because if you just, again, if it was me without a rubric in front of me, I don't think GMU would have hung with CMU at all because the dancing was so much worse, right?
Yeah.
And points wise, it reflected it and was enough to pull CMU above GMU, even though CMU's overall creativity points were slightly lower than GMU's. Right? That's how much better CMU was at dancing than GMU. So that's something to keep in mind. Is the average like we all as viewers without a specific frame of mind, right? It's a different story watching from that lens, and then watching from a judge's lens and their frame of mind. The other thing about it, we were put in a very terrible spot to judge from. That year we didn't sit where GTB was sitting. We were sitting like on the far left side of the audience, the far right side of the audience. Like they put Ankush and I, like you walk into Listener, you take a left and you start going up the steps, and then we walked 5 steps up and then sat down. So we were like to the left. So we were looking again. We were to the audience left side of the audience, and we're looking up at the stage because we couldn't. It was just like a terrible vantage point. And there's nothing I could do about it.
Why the hell did they put you
Dude,
there?
I don't know why.
What do you mean?
Dude, because we walked
do you
into
mean
the
there's nothing you can
show.
do about it?
We walked into the auditorium 5 minutes before the show started, and the audience was
Uh-huh.
packed. Like there was no
Oh,
way
yeah.
that we could have walked up
Okay.
and just kicked people out of their seats. Like it was
Got
just it
you.
was bad. So
Oh,
yeah, and then
shit.
Ankush and or sorry, Ankush and I were sitting on that side, and then Chirag and Ashita were on the opposite, so they were like 5 seats up on the right side.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of whack, but that's another thing. Like people don't understand that we had that vantage point too, so we're trying to make judgment calls from that view. So DRP might have even gotten screwed a little bit because we couldn't see half their formations or any of their formations really.
Oh my god.
So
Yeah.
I had better seats that blow it than you
you
did.
did.
That's astonishing.
Yeah. Also, like, it's a little fun story. Yeah. Whenever they put up those towers after the doublet segment, there was a few of us, and we were spraying water guns at the audience as part of the thing. I'm not really sure what went into that call, but they just kind of like CMU came.
Wait,
a
were
bunch
you
of the
like you were
FCB? Yeah, I was
so
with,
FCU in the front row was instructed during towers
No,
to
no.
shoot water guns at the audience?
No, so we were like side stage,
Oh.
and during the thing, like a bunch of the CMU people and a few of the FCB guys, we were like, pew 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 pew. It's like at the audience. I'm not really sure why they asked us to do that, but that did happen. So if you were in the first like 3 rows, I'm sorry, but yeah.
I will say some people in the audience did say that performance made them wet. So
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so moving on, 2016 to 17 season. This was actually a year unlike the previous year where, Sid outlined a whole bunch of teams that we all kind of put forward. We all had different picks. Most of our picks for this season were pretty much the same, and really it came down to 3 sets. We had Ferdile at Circle City 2017. Huge performance for Ferdile. One of the main things being that they beat NJ, which is a huge deal.
Right after they lost to MIT.
That was a rough Boston. That was a rough Boston for many reasons. Anil is, I guess, in some ways personally responsible for that Ferdile loss, but
What do you mean?
he made that set.
Yeah, I
He
know.
made
I helped with the
that
set.
Boston winning set where they
It's all
That
took paintbrushes. They took paintbrushes, wrote absolutely nothing on a sheet, and held it up and got first place.
No way, yo.
We got second. We got
Wait,
second.
Wait, what? What?
Have you seen this video of
I have
MIT at
not.
Boston?
Oh my god.
I
Y'all
have
have to
not.
go watch this.
What the
Oh,
fuck?
you should watch it and then take a minute and meditate on the fact that it beat Ferdile and then watch it again.
Yo, what do you mean you painted some shit on a board and held it up?
We literally that.
Oh, like so that wasn't hyperbole at all.
No,
No,
that is
it was-
literally
Oh.
what happened. I don't
Oh
know
my
if that
God.
was a gimmick that didn't work or there was intentionally nothing on that sheet, but I remember they held it up and I
What
was
it?
like,
I think so. The camera is glow in the dark paint, so in the audience you can see it, but the camera couldn't get it.
Oh, it's like when we held out Kunde that were glow in the dark and nobody could
Or
see
like
it.
that was
when
not glow
Bruin
in the
tries to
dark.
do
That was
their
lights that were supposed to come on in
gimmick.
the dark. There's no magic there. They just didn't turn on, Umar. That's a different
No,
problem.
They just didn't glow. I saw it. I was holding it.
Uber sorry
we
about
had
2016.
glow in the dark Kunde that you're supposed to put in the sun for a couple of hours, for like 8 hours, and then they were going to light up for a little bit. We didn't put them in the sun for long enough. We also could have just bought glow in the dark tape and used it instead of the paint, which would have guaranteed it being glow in the dark. Yet we brain farted and we didn't even do that.
What year was this?
2016.
20, the year 120.
X to the V to the triple I.
Oh, that year. Got it. I was always wondering if there was a gimmick that I missed there.
That's a gimmick that, I mean, we missed that gimmick.
Yeah, I was like, I was like, oh, I can kind of see it. Like I remember looking at it, I was like, ah, yes, it worked. And then
If our theme that year was a play on the 2015-2016 Bruin, where we're the team that just does a bunch of gimmicks and we fuck up all the time, we would have won that Bruin hands down. Because not a single thing that we did that year worked at all. If we would have just cut it all out, we would have been great. Also, everything else was good.
There's
All right,
the other team that I always wonder what the gimmick was. Maybe you guys know, was BK 2014 Bruin.
Oh, yeah, when they went to the back and the lights just shut off.
Yeah, I always wanted to know what that was.
It's a reference to
Yeah,
it's a
I
reference to a
don't know
hip hop
what that-
video. It's a
No,
reference to a
that's a
hip-hop video.
different. I know that. I know
Oh,
that one.
oh.
It was for their Kunda gimmick.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
went back with their Kunda, and then the lights just went off. And then nothing
And then they came out,
happened.
and then they just kept dancing, and I was like, "Oh,
It's not taking a break, guys.
Yeah. It's
We did the same.
nice.
We did this. We did the same thing at Fever when we realized we were dancing for that 9 minutes. We just turned the lights off after Kunda.
Bring them out, bring them out, bring them out, bring them out, and nothing
And
will come out, sir.
The best.
Like,
And if this ever makes it into the final podcast, I will say, Hard Karen specifically called us out in the judges meeting afterwards by saying I was expecting something from it, but I thought the rest of the set was okay, which told me at the time that it's just okay to take breaks whenever you want to, as long as you can just crush whatever else is coming after that. We literally were like, "Yo, we're super tired. We'll just take 16 beats." That was it.
does anyone actually know though what the BK gimmick was? No
you
one.
assume it when you come on to this podcast. Please come on to this podcast first. But then second of all, we're gonna ask you that.
Tell us what the gimmick was. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one is going to know. I don't even think they know.
Okay.
All right, so let's intro this episode. Intro
I
this
don't
year.
even know what we're. Did I talk about Fertile? I did talk about
You didn't
Fertile,
talk.
right?
You talked about Fertile, and that's it.
Another set that we've got on our list here is SPD at Big Ten. That was by far the best iteration of that set that SPD brought that season. Particularly impressive how much they were able to change over from Fever, which had not been that many weeks previous. But yeah, Big Ten SPD got a huge crowd reaction, really clean, great set. And our final set on this list, which we, by a very close margin, gave the best set title to, was KPGD at Bruin 2017.
Y'all gonna do me like that, make me give the summary for this one. I see how it is. See, KBGD and SPD, it's really comparing apples and oranges. You could literally pull them up on YouTube, and if you have a big enough monitor where you can put them side by side and just read the YouTube comments, you could completely tell that it struck a chord with two different sets of people. Specifically on the SPD side, it's very much like this is the essence of Bhangra. I'm so proud of you, Punjabi. Like culturally, it's like it hits a lot of the right notes, and I think from a dancing perspective, it hits the right notes. And then on the KBG video, it's like this is amazing. This was such an entertaining performance. It also hits a lot of notes culturally, but not so much from the Punjabi aspect, just the evolution of Bhangra, and then the music components of that. When we went back and forth, the question I think for a lot of us was, when it comes to a performance, how do you measure a successful performance? And I think a few of us picked SPD because that year they were the best team. They have had a huge impact on the circuit in terms of dancing. The KBGD performance, by comparison, I don't think anybody expected anything from that, especially the year before. I think the year before at Bruin, they were the last place team, and they were objectively trash. And it was a situation where, I was live at both performances, and my takeaways were very simply that I knew how amazing SPD was, and I had set my expectations high, and they exceeded them. And I gave them, a round of applause, and I didn't stand. I just kind of knew we had literally just performed. Sid and I were backstage watching a video feed in the changing room and watching the SPD performance. And we just both knew we had lost, and, deservedly so. Right. From a performance standpoint, Bruin was a different thing. I was dancing with Mob at Bruin, and, I was like, I want to go watch the KBG performance, because a lot of KBG folks were saying that this set was going to be absolutely shitty. Every single person I talked to was like, this is bad. This is terrible. Kuntal doesn't know what he's doing. Samit doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. It was a lot of that over and over and over again. I remember seeing them at the pre-party, and a couple of the guys were just like, you know what, whatever happens tomorrow. And I was watching from one of the balconies. And it's one of those things where, like, there's like I think there's a certain part of all of us that we go and we decide that we want to do things. and we want to do things with little preparation, i.e., like college and or like high school or like studying for an exam or preparing for a major meeting. And I think like 5% of the time we think about like, hey, what if we just did this with no preparation and we just winged it and then just hope that the stars aligned, that it would make sense and it would resonate. And that's what happened with the KBG performance. It just seemed like every single thing that they did, um, every single segment hit super, super hard with everybody and the expectations from a Bruin standpoint. And I think, Bruin has this history of wanting to see the best of the best, whether that's be a more creative performance with a lot of gimmicks, whether that's a dancing performance like, SPD later on in the Bruin life cycle. They've always wanted to get something that will get them on their feet. And the KBGD performance, I think 200, 300, 400 people, the first 10 rows in the audience, it was a standing ovation for a couple of minutes. And very rarely do I see or have received that. I've personally have received that twice in my life. One was at Berg 7 when we won in front of um, our home crowd, and everybody in Pittsburgh gave us a standing ovation. I think that was more of like a pity standing ovation, like, yo, fuck these guys. Like, this has been a really long time. I was just, congratulations, here you go. And like, my mom was like, I don't have to come to Bhangra competitions anymore. Congratulations. The second time was at Elite 8 when the music cut out and everyone gave us a standing ovation. And they were, look, it was just this, like, I just remember walking to the judges meeting and they were like, hey, I gave you a standing ovation. You lost. And you should have lost, but at the same time, I gave you a standing ovation for that. The KBGD Bruin performance is one of those really rare times when I think you saw something, and I don't know if it was going to change the circuit. I don't think a lot of what KBGD did had any influence on teams post that. I think it's too crazy to pull off. Like it's just so much to do, which I think is part of the reason that I picked the KBGD performance. Because it's like a level of craziness and creativity that was just very, very much unique to them. And
Yeah.
whereas like I think a lot of the SPD dancing has percolated into other sets. That's what stood out for me. And I could go into detail from a KPGD perspective in terms of the individual segments, but I think at this point, if you're probably listening to this, you've danced Bunga in the last 4 years, you've probably watched both of these sets ad nauseum. So I would just at that point be playing to the crowd.
I would disagree though, Ram. It definitely changed. Like, I think KPG's performance did change circuit. Mainly Bruin though, because ever since that year, it's kind of just been like, yo, who had the hottest theme? And we all turned into fusion teams for like one
I disagree.
competition.
With Umar's statement.
What do you mean? What?
So I think that I don't think
There are literally themed performances now, sir.
yeah, well that's just a choice that teams decide to make. But I could
Yeah, I
make
know,
like
because probably because of KPGD
well
and how.
let me
how-
just let me elaborate.
No.
So to your first point,
Go,
to your
go,
first
go, go,
point,
go, go.
we take a look at this past Bruin that I judged. AEG in 2013 would have beaten all of the teams there, and that wasn't themed.
Okay.
So I don't
Okay,
want to.
that's
So I
fine,
don't. I
I'm telling you.
disagree with the fact that just because you have a theme means you're going to win, or just because you
I'm-
have a theme.
Man, did I say
well,
that?
that's what you're implying right now.
That is absolutely not what I'm implying. I am telling.
You-
I'm saying
but-
to change how people approach
exactly.
sets.
So that's the idea. If we don't have this, then we can't win. Is why you do what you're saying, and I'm telling you that
I'm not saying that though. I'm just saying that there are now teams that make
Yeah, because
themed
that's what they
sets.
think,
That didn't
and
happen before this
what I'm-
performance, and now it does.
U-
It's an
Umar,
influence.
what I am telling you is because you are saying it as an influence means that teams think that they have to do it, otherwise they wouldn't do it.
People have made thematic sets before in the past, right? And while there
mean-
might be a greater uptake in thematic performances at Bruin, I would say that that is still not as big of a change as
I mean,
how SPD has completely changed.
I mean, agreed. I'm also not saying that SPD's influence was less than KPGD. I mean, anybody who says that
I mean,
is
I
stupid.
mean, Umar, Fodge has been doing a theme since day one almost for their own team,
Agreed.
right?
I understand.
Like-
I'm saying there are now more.
I don't know.
There are more teams.
I'm not
Okay,
gonna
no,
convince
hold on.
you.
I have a question. How many other sets do we know? I don't have a position on this actually. I'm just listening to you guys talk about this. But how many other sets are there that have storyline sort of themes.
Via
I think
Rancha.
This KPGD again, but other than them,
No, I know,
So
Bond, I know.
prior to this 2017 Bruin sets, how many other sets had like storyline theme? And I don't know if you guys
Fudge.
consider the Bruins set
I mean,
a
yeah, that's it.
storyline theme, but like I'd
Or theme
consider
theme.
KPGD a storyline at Bruin. And I'm just wondering how many there were before that, because I can definitely point to quite a few after that. I don't know how many there were before that.
see, I guess I don't. When you said the word storyline, I don't remember any off the top of my head. I think that if you want to use the word theme, where Van City did singers, GGW
Yeah, that was
did
after.
the
Avengers.
Avengers.
After.
you know, Fodge has been doing a theme their entire lifespan.
Absolutely. I don't think that KPGD is like
But
innovation
storyline,
on
then
themes.
no. Storyline, no.
All I'm saying, guys, all I'm saying, KBGD did their theme performance, and now there are more theme performances. Can we all agree on that very simple fact?
I think I agree with you if we talk about themes beyond just like I would say that Fodge's theme is like a team identity more than it is like a thing that goes into making decisions about like the actual set construction, right? It's a thing that they kind of keep harkening back to the same way that other teams do with like signature moves and stuff like that and Vardy, but it's not
Shing, shing, shing.
right. Things like that where it's things like that where it's team identity, not necessarily a thing that defines set construction.
Mhm.
I think I agree with Umar if I take the angle of it being a storyline thing. I think that the uptick in performances that attempted to tell a story happened after KPGD at Bruin. There's a lot. Empire actually has brought Bruin performances with themes to like really, really obvious themes. Bruin
Please tell the yeah.
Bruin 2016 base came and they had like they sort of had like a setup, right? Where like they sort of had a storyline where they were fugitives and they had the Jugga thing, but like right. But the
Is that a theme though? Because they mentioned it at the beginning. They
that's
did it
my
once
thing.
in
that's
the
what
middle,
I'm
and
saying.
that's
It's not but that's the difference. That's exactly the difference I'm trying to point out, right? Like
Okay,
other
gotcha.
teams have done this, but
Mhm.
and like Fudge has also done the thing if you want to talk about them moving from army from just like a team identity to a theme. They've also done performances
Yo,
where
we
they
got
opened
planes.
right.
We got planes.
But they've done performances where they've opened where like, okay, they're also, like army invading the stage or whatever like that. But KPGD carried their theme as an
Mhm.
actual story from segment to segment successfully and won Bruin. Like I think that magic combination is the thing that maybe planted this seed that you're talking about, Omar, where it's like, okay, if we do this thing start to finish and have something tying all our segments together from a narrative standpoint, that's something that can be successful at Bruin. And I don't know if that's maybe like a kind of a merging of the two ideas that I think Sid
It's-
and Umar, you guys are both talking
It's
about.
fair.
That's Nana. You're saying exactly what I
One
meant
thing I
say
want to
right there.
add in here, what's up,
Go
what's
for it.
up?
Hey.
Listening to all this, one thing that is so unique about that KPGD performance is with themes, you have teams like FCB has planes, Fodge has an army, they have these themes, but what KPGD did that was so unique was the theme or the story that they did. It was not very replicatable. Like I don't think a team could
Right.
replicate what they did or the
100%.
emotions that were conjured in that performance.
100%.
KPGD could not even do it themselves. When they
And
tried to do Hiranja, obviously, like just from a parent perspective or audience perspective, Hiranja, parents thought it was cool. Like, family people, we're in the audience think it's very cool because it's different. But they still couldn't replicate the same emotions that were drawn out. I think that's what also makes this performance so legendary and how it changed Bhangra, whether you think in a positive or a negative way. But if you draw a comparison between the SPD impact and the KPGD impact, the SPD impact is something you can repeat it because it's something that you can improve your dancing ability. That's a
And then-
very tangible thing that you can replace it. Sorry, Rom. And then the other piece of it with the KPGD thing, it's like you can't really repeat that at all.
Yeah,
it's hard to apply that again.
That's my point, right? It's you don't see KPGD sets like KPGD tried it again. I was there. We didn't do it. we got that feedback from the audience too. And that was the core component. I think you saw what SPD did, and you started seeing the mechanisms, the push, the dancing. Like I think SPD gave everyone a path to what now good dancing looked like, and there was an achievable way of doing it. KPGD, it's just not a. I don't want to say it's not like a scalable or like widespread phenomenon, because I think it requires a lot of like the brain trust who makes Panga segments to think a specific way to make those things happen. Um, but there have been like attempts to try to do that again, and just have not repeated that moment, and that's part of the reason why it is so legendary, right? It's had an impact on the circuit, but it's not as I think well felt as SPD, and it's a big reason why, in my opinion, I really like the KBGD routine, because I being in that moment, it's just those kinds of moments don't come around that often. Like those the 3 times in my life where I've experienced that in a competitive, maybe more, but like
Mhm.
I would say like for me personally, 3 times where I've been like I've been a truly ridiculously legendary moment live. I some of the competitions that we talked about in the first episode, I wasn't there in person for, but this was one of those things. Also, for Light Circle was dope. Oh my god, as a judge there, that was a lot of shinging. It was for Thiele has, you know, beaten NJ and a couple of elite teams a couple of times and now. And that was a really that was a really incredible performance in terms of all the things that needed to go together to make that great. So I'm just gonna say
Cool.
that too.
Legit. All right.
So 2017 to 2018 then were 4 teams that we were deciding between. A couple of teams from Bruin. So there was DDR at Bruin, which was a momentous performance for a variety of different reasons, most notably for the number of people that appeared on stage at that time. There's some very complex concepts balanced by some very good dancing. And that was something that we hadn't seen before, and was also, I think, in this grand scheme of Bruin performances, it was a very touching and lasting kind of tribute that I know for me was was very it touched me also. Like, it was something that was very cool, and was a great homage to prior dancers and prior leaders and prior captains. There's for Thile at Motor City, which was a solid dancing performance. It wasn't, I think, the most spectacular set, but it was also great because Motor City doesn't ask for those things, and for Thile, went out and they just did it, and they danced. I would say the dancing was more than solid. It was very, very good. And if you watch it, I think it's one of those performances that it might not be the most rawest thing, but it is one of the most together performances I've ever seen, where everyone is just dancing consistently at the same level for 8 minutes, which is an incredibly, incredibly hard task to do in Bhangra. The next performance is SPD at Bruin. SPD at Bruin was ridiculous for a lot of reasons. They, like taped the windows. They wouldn't let anyone know what they were going to do. They had a lot of audiovisual components to it. They had some really cool takes on getting the crowd into it. There's one moment where they did the hand clap on the Hindi song. And although they really weren't dancing, it was just one of those really cool creative moments that they really sold, that Bruin strives for. Then there's obviously the ending jumps with them just jumping and filling up the meter, which I think made the crowd go wild. Um, and that's a great performance, but I think in some ways, I think we were all pretty unanimous with this. It was NJJ, because there's another NJJJJ at Circle City was our pick for 2017, 2018.
Yeah, so NJJ at Circle was honestly a mind-blowing performance. I'm actually just very sad that that video isn't seen as often as it should, because it was at Circle City, and it was kind of like a random tiny ass comp. But that being said, I'm pretty sure the only video for a period of time was the one I recorded while I was there. And as Saab can attest, sitting next to me during that performance was fucking awful for him and everybody else around me. Because I think I screamed louder than I ever have at a performance. It was insane. Honestly, I think one thing that was really nice that one thing one thing that NJ always it was doing during that performance was subverting expectations in very slight but very eye-opening and impactful ways. When they're doing this, when they're in subs and they're doing these jaw claps, and you kind of just like know, okay, they're gonna do the normal like hit jaw, and they're gonna just clap, and then do like the round claps, but then they closed, opened back up into another thing. That was a super huge moment for me. That the mall segment, and personally, I think the mall segments throughout the circuit have been getting kind of bland in terms of just going around the circle, doing some formations, doing whatever. And the formational concepts in this performance were absolutely stunning. Everybody lost their mind over it. The Kunde segment, fantastic. You could just like watch performance, and one thing that Ram and Sid always told me when I was first making sets is that you need to capture the audience's attention and make them go like, oh shit, at least like every 30 to 45 seconds. And that was a performance that, without a lot of gimmicks, did that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it was just absolutely fantastic. One slight thing, so in my recording, um, all like NJ does is they do this thing where they like pull their kunde to the side and then just like slide like this. Like they have their kunde over their head, then they just slide like this. I kid you not, I don't know what it was, but like when I was watching that and like they didn't sew in sync, I thought the floor shifted, and I like my hand, like I literally was like, yo, what just happened? Did the floor literally just shift to the right? But nah, and then I watched it again. I was like, I think I was high or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
remember when that video came out, I think I was in practice and
Mhm.
I was just like checking my phone in between runs or something like that. And so I was like, oh, this video's up. Let me just click on it and see what's happening.
Mhm.
And I watched the first like minute. And you know the beginning where they have those like that they make that square where they just move the lines
Yeah.
all the way across?
Yeah.
Like before the sets even really started, I saw
Mhm.
that, my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, okay, practice is canceled. We're all just gonna sit here and watch this video. Because I mean, the fact that you can pack that much into the opening like minute of the set, not
Mhm.
even, it was less than a minute. The fact that you can pack that much in such a short period of time before the set's even really begun, it
Mhm.
just set this tone. And I can only imagine what it was like live, where it was just like, you'd better pay attention or you're gonna miss something because this set
Mhm.
is about to be insane. And it really delivered on whatever promise it made to the audience in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah. And also one thing that was really interesting is that square formation, ever since I saw that performance, I've seen it pop up a million times. Like I have seen so many teams rip that mechanism in like slightly subtle ways, but that was the first time I kind of saw like there are plenty of sequences, like 5, 6, 3, 4, 6 beat sequences that people like will copy from another team over and over again, like the Shiv Chun step or like something like that, which kind of propagate. That was like for me personally the first time I saw like a formational mechanism get iterated and repeat throughout a performance over and over again.
Yeah.
So that was like
Because I
it
think
was a yeah.
I think the reason that people kind of go to that set over and over again for like more and more things they can take is because I think honestly, I think people saw that and were like exactly what you were saying earlier. It was just no one expected that. No one else felt like they could have come up with it. And so they were like, oh, well, if this is just out here now and no one ever else is going to come and do this again, I guess it's like fair game almost, which, I mean, on the other hand, it's so unique that everyone knows exactly where that came from.
Yeah. Regardless, fantastic fucking performance. Fucking loved it. Like I'm pretty sure I went to Circle on a whim, and so glad I went.
Yeah, for
But yeah.
especially it's what I think the other thing that's like so I think this season was also a really great season, and that's why um that's part of the reason why actually we had so few teams that we were kind of picking from because we knew it was such a good season that whatever we picked was really really good to begin with.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, the fact that this decision, while it was close in the sense that like we talked about the merits of all of these sets a lot, but when it came down to voting, this was unanimous for us, and that just says so much about what a phenomenal set it was for such a phenomenal season overall.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have anything else to say?
Can't wait for the social media feedback on this one.
So next season is 2018-2019 season. So first we got Fudge at Vice City. If anybody wants to know about the most legendary competition in the past like 4 years, it is Fudge at Vice City. Arnold, did you perform in that one?
Yeah, I did.
Can you like give me like a quick like 30-second shit show recap
Of Vice as a whole.
as of Vice as a whole?
I'll start with like the Thursday before the comp. I was at TD Garden watching a Lakers Celtic game when the captain's WhatsApp group started blowing up, and I looked at it, and not only was I just sitting by a basketball court, I looked at the group chat saying that our new stage is a basketball court, and that's where the shit show started. Honestly, like after that, when we got there, there was no. I heard that they had not set up their transportation for like getting teams from an airport to the place where the comp or to the hotel, and they said that it was in Miami, so they told everybody to go to the Miami airport, when in fact it was in a small town called Boca Raton, about 45 minutes from that airport, which also had an airport near it, and they told nobody to go to that airport. So
Great.
then I believe one of the teams from California came, and they were the first team to land there. And the guy who had the comp had them book all the transportation vans because he had never done it, and he forgot his ID to do it. So there's the second part of the shit show. The third part is that the mixer ends up it was supposed to be at 6, and it got pushed to 10:30, I believe.
Hype.
And we were all kind of just sitting there with the judges, figuring out. The judges didn't even know what they were doing for the competition. They'd never met the organizer at that point. And then honestly, after that, it was just like all the teams kind of getting together to figure out what they wanted to do, how they wanted to go about the comp, and it was a very packed
Basketball
let me
court.
basketball court. As I must say, there was about, I think, 3 families there, plus the teams. So
Yo, I remember like watching like that, and I definitely saw like 2 dudes like with a basketball. They were just trying to hoop, and like
yeah,
ended up like watching.
I definitely remember getting off stage and like looking at the entrance of the rec center, and there was like people just like there, like they came back from like some type of tennis practice or whatever they had there, and they're just like, oh, this is a cool thing going on. But yeah. Oh, also our liaison never showed up until I found her serving food at the end of the day after the performance, and she was like, "Oh, did you guys place?" And we're like, "Yeah, we placed first." She's like, "Are you guys Foch?" And we're like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I'm your liaison," and we were like, "Where were you for the past like 3 days?"
It's like, I
So
have news for
Oh.
you. You are not a liaison.
Oh, great. Anyways, I just like, besides the shit show
Vice
that
is
was,
like Vice is like our generation's Bhangra Blizzard.
yes, indeed it is.
But Vice actually
Indeed it is,
happened.
except
Blizzard didn't happen.
though. It happened. For anybody who's curious about either of these performances, I will be linking the BTF threads in the show notes. Please read. Wonderful time.
That
Have
is
fun.
that is the BTF that I miss. That is the
Yeah.
only thing I miss about old BTF is those
Yeah.
kinds of comp threads.
Yes. Regardless about even without the shit show, that performance was still fantastic. Was that the first time y'all went co-ed?
yeah, that was
Yeah,
our first time.
First time they went co-ed. Anyways, after that, NJ Juarez at 6. Fantastic performance. The opening is very legendary. Everybody loves that opening, and that performance was absolutely wild. GCC at Bhangra Fest, arguably one of their GCC's best performances. Absolutely fantastic set. Absolutely fantastic performance. The formation, again, like you can just go, like, this is like GCC in general. Absolutely fantastic formational mechanisms, crazy energy. Like it is amazing, those performances. However, a very close decision again. We went with FCB at Berg 2018.
Yeah, so for this decision, it was really close between FCB and GCC. Both were very phenomenal sets, but at the end of the day, it had to come down to the creativity level, and both the creativity and the dancing level that FCB brought. Though GCC had their great mechanisms here and there throughout the set, FCB's mechanisms, like always, they're fantastic. And not only were they just doing simple choreography within those mechanisms, they brought out like the the best thing I can talk about is, I believe, the Famonia segment. Well, it was actually a multitude of segments, I believe, that are pushed into one, but the amount of different mechanisms within that segment just kind of blew my mind away. Everybody also talks about the Kunda toss at the end of the Kunda segment, but one thing I liked the most about the Kunda segment was the intro with the whole gimmick setup, where I don't even know how you guys got the Kunda to stick together like that.
First of all, I know you saw Kunde's being dropped from 100 feet in the sky. Just know that if at the very least you couldn't figure that shit out, then we're magicians. Second of all, I love how everyone would tell me that Kunde throw is the greatest thing of all time. And I feel like Cornell people are dying. It was Cornell who did that first, right? Like, I feel like all these Cornell people that we talked about in like the WBBC stuff earlier in the first episode.
What Kunde toss did Cornell do?
Dude, they definitely did a Kunde toss. I could find the YouTube video. It's
I mean, fine
we
for
are
me. Like,
we
I
are
thought they
not.
did like a sup throw, right?
yeah.
I mean, that was also something that we did, and then they took that from us. So
Yeah.
I think all is fair in Bhangra and
Bhangra.
All right.
But
Anyways.
like, once again, I just think that FCB's creativity made their set, and their dancing level just made their set a lot better than the GCC set. In my opinion, I couldn't sit through the whole GCC set because I will point out the timestamp, 7 minutes 39 seconds. I don't know what they did there. I don't know what they were trying to do there, but it kind of just like tossed the set for me as a whole.
I'm gonna look up what this timestamp is. What
Yeah, I was
is
gonna
it?
say, what the
7:39.
hell?
Yeah, 7 minutes and 39 seconds.
Okay, let's
It was
see.
sloppy. It didn't really go. It was the third time they did chicken wings on a drop.
That is like one thing I will say. They loved. I mean, listen, I love chickens. I like passionately
I
love.
love chicken wings,
Yeah.
especially fried ones.
Yeah, passionately love them. But I was like, yeah, even that's too much. You can't like do the same shit over and over again.
Oh, this was this thing. Okay, it's right before the Libby segment. Oh man, I love this segment.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I will give it to you though that some of the hits were repetitive, especially like with the setup and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, I think that this is an issue that we're coming up against repeatedly. I think we're noticing like we're having to compare sets that are just so different, and arguably there's nothing more different than sets coming from two different circuits that don't even have the same like rubrics or the same they don't historically emphasize the same things, and so we're really looking at, like Ram said earlier, apples and oranges. Yeah, I don't know. I really like that GCC set, and I think that people don't give enough credit to the UK circuit the last couple years. I think in the past the criticism has been that
They can't dance.
right. I mean, yeah, to put it as others may put it bluntly, that the level of dancing is just not up to snuff with what's happening in the US. And I think to a large extent I agree with that. But the two caveats I would put on that is that I think you need to give some leeway for just stylistic differences. I also think that the other thing is that in the last couple of years, in particular, the level of dancing in the UK has gone up significantly, especially among the top, placing teams. Further down the list, I don't know if, the fourth place team at a UK comp is necessarily going to compete with the fourth place team at some of these, high tier US comps. But the GCC set that we're talking about from Bhangra Fest 2018, I think so many of the dancers had phenomenal energy all the way through. Quite a few of them think there's a guy in black and there's a guy in red who are just insane dancers, and I think that they would probably beat out quite a few of the US's top dancers. But I don't know.
But to that,
Go ahead.
sorry, to that point, like after watching that set, GCC did have a couple phenomenal dancers, but on the opposite end, they also had many or as much weaker dancers.
Yeah.
Like, I think I want to say it was either orange or I think it was orange, but they just after sup, the kind of energy just died within like the lower half of the
I need
dancers.
that snippet.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You're right. The whole teams as a whole are not at the same level across the board in terms of dancing. A lot of US teams are. But all of that aside, I think if you're looking at set construction, and maybe it's my personal preference, but the number of times that GCC did something on stage and it was just really, really clearly well orchestrated, well executed. Messy moments for sure. But I would argue that the FCB set also had plenty of messy moments. It's just a question of what you value more, which is something that I said the last episode too, I know. But yeah, for me, that GCC set just hit all the right notes. I was impressed with the energy level and with the creativity. Creativity definitely skewed more towards formations than choreography, whereas the FCB set creativity.
Did both.
Okay. Umar, are you good?
No.
Do you need your screws tightened? What's happening?
Nah. I mean, like, you're not gonna get me. Like, I'm
I know.
obviously fucking biased, so like, you're not gonna get me to say anything. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's not that I don't think that the FCB set is good, right?
Yeah.
It is
I know,
good,
I know,
but
yeah.
I think it's what GCC did is hard to replicate. I'll put it that way.
I just love it when people are like, old dancers should be able to judge their teams when they judge again. They don't have any bias. Yo, I'm pretty biased. No, don't lie.
To any comp out there, if there's an FCB performance, don't even ask me to judge. Like, don't even ask. Never be.
Or if there's a GCC performance, don't ask.
No, man, they're great. I love them. But when I'm competing against you, fuck you.
That's fair. I think it's a sentiment we can all agree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. I think we are on our final
Last.
season.
Oh boy.
Yeah, the 2019-2020 season, the season that came to its unfortunate end with the coronavirus, COVID-19, SARS-CoV, I believe it's two.
SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah. Yeah, so we only got half a season here, or about half a season here, and the performance that we did get were decent for the I shouldn't say that.
Oh my god. Yo, they were kind of trash. Like, that's like what you're saying.
Yeah.
They were kind of fucking bad.
Careful. Some of us were on stage this season.
No, fuck.
I disagree. I think
Nah,
every
son.
performance on this list was a good performance in comparison to other years.
Yeah,
too.
everything was good.
In
good.
comparison to other years, I think it was just as good. It wasn't worse. I don't see it at
Wait,
all.
what are we talking about? I stepped.
No, it's just it's because of Bruin and Blowout didn't happen. It's like that's why we don't get those like big ones. I know. Very aware.
What?
Rom, honestly,
We're
don't worry
talking
about
about
it.
2019 to 2020 season.
Well,
Okay. No,
Rom
I'm
also
saying
wrote
everyone
in.
talking-
Rom also wrote in for his things. Who cares? Not me. For his two team picks.
I mean, I will go on record and say that there's just no possible way that anybody from this past year is going to win this thing. Because
Unfortunately, you're right.
everyone is just so COVID depressed. They're like, I don't know, screw this team. We didn't even have those comps. Exactly what Omer is saying. There's just no way. So
So yeah, for the 2019-2020 season, the season that came to its unfortunate end with COVID-19, the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, we had sets from NDC, such as First Day at NDC, which was a very strong performance of theirs, especially that being their second performance. They really solidified who they were as a team and their identity. Following that, we had DDR at NDC as well, who also came out with Spinning, and that was...
Give me some heads up at least, man. Okay,
No,
well,
other than that-
also
Other
happened
than
at
that, I
NDC
think
this
the
year.
DDR performance at NDC was a very strong and clean performance. Everything up until that point, in my opinion, was pretty solid. The spinning could have done a little less spinning, but still effective at what it did. Following that, we had DRP at RDR, which I believe, in my opinion, was one of the strongest all-girls performances that year or that season. Not only did they come out and do what DRP does best, but they brought it out with phenomenal dancing as well.
And a peacock.
We also had, what was that?
And a peacock.
And a peacock, yes. We also had NJFL at Lob once again. Folk Lovers coming out and wrecking the stage as always. I can't really complain about any set that they ever brought out being bad. They were all phenomenal. Their subsegments are always mean. Their mixes are always bangers. It was just an overall great performance. But the performance that we ended up choosing as the best performance from the 2019-2020 season was for Dile at East Coast.
I just, yo, just 1 second. You can put this in. You can not put this in. I just find it really funny that Fortile is handing NJFL their like 3rd loss.
Well,
With this.
not to take away from Fertile at ECS, but because of our rules that only two performances from a single academy or a single team could make it into the bracket, we actually would have picked NJFL at LOB as the best performance of this season, but because we already have NJ Circle and NJ Warriors at Boston in 2013, we had to now pick Fertile at ECS. I did have the honor of being in that audience and being there live and getting to judge that performance. And for all the performances I've ever judged, and this, me genuinely saying this, that might be the best overall performance I've ever judged. Just top down, excellent dancers, the aura that they presented, even when it was only Surya and Bobby and they were just starting on stage. Before, like when it was just those two, you had this feeling that everything, whatever was about to happen, was going to be destructive, and they absolutely delivered on that. The focus on fundamentals was there. Every single person that came to the front of stage was murdering it. I remember a moment when Saab was in front, and he was doing sups. Like his sup was backwards from everybody. Like if his right hand was up in the air, everybody else's left hand was up in the air. So he was opposite of everybody else, but it looked like he had no idea because he was crushing it that hard. And it was kind of funny, but that's like just the aura that they were delivering to the entire audience, if that makes any sense, that it didn't matter what they were doing. It was amazing to watch, which is what you want from excellent performances, is that the dances are there selling every single moment about it. And this idea that at least I talk about, of controlling what the viewer is watching and controlling what the viewer is appreciating. When they wanted you to appreciate how good they were at Bhangra, they did that. When they wanted you to appreciate how good they were at creating formations, they did that. When they wanted you to appreciate how cool, like a cool choreo concept, they did that. So throughout the entire thing, they were delivering just every single time A1 performance. It was just an unbelievably great job. I can't say enough about it. And, unfortunately the season got cut too short. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Maybe if we did have a Bruin, maybe if we did have a blowout, that ECS performance would still hang with anything that could have came, right? Because, we on the rest of our picks, we didn't pick only Bruin sets, right? We picked a Circle City set, right? So, I don't agree with the idea that the season necessarily was a waste or something that was worse than others. I think that performance was very, very good, and they're our winner for 2019-2020.
I think that before the season cut short, I had to watch that performance for this podcast, so I just want to throw that out there, that we had to do a little bit of homework before watching it. I thought it was a really good sign of things to come, and it's also, if people haven't been watching any of the Bhangra stuff or seeing any of the live stream competitions, I think that also ties into how Fertile has been so good winning the inaugural, Bhangra competition. I think a lot of what Sid was talking about with that performance has rolled into that, and they've truly become, with the lack of competitions and just the streaming format, like a very top dog team. And not that they weren't a top dog team before, but it seems like they're setting up to be the elite team in North America, potentially when in 2021 or whatever year, 2022, whenever we get a vaccine and whatnot, when we get back on stage. I feel like they've set the foundations for themselves and the bar very, very high from a dancing and performance standpoint.
I was very excited for the potential of them versus not just the team at Champs for this season. So I think it was going to be a bloodbath for whichever NJ team showed up to play with Fertile. It just would have been a bloodbath, and it would have been amazing to watch.
Yeah, I think the only weak link is Saab Grover. I think he just needs to stop dancing.
And just do shares from wheelchairs.
In jeans.
In jeans.
On one leg.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Bhangra podcast, and there is still 1 week left to make a prediction bracket before it all shuts down, so be sure to enter to win the pot of cash at the end of this entire thing, and vote for your favorite performances of the decade.
Yeah.